Good evening. Am I live?
Yep, you're good to go.
Okay, great. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, everyone, wherever you are. I'm Rachel Levitsky, founder of Belladonna Collaborative. I'm a poet and educator organizer, and it is with humility, sadness, and gratitude to Ghazal, Munir, Vince, Jeff, and all the other organizers and all the poets, and always with defiance and ongoingness that I will introduce our half hour. I'll read the mission statement of Belladonna, and I'll introduce the poets, and they will go. Begun in 1999, Belladonna Collaborative promotes the work of women and feminist writers who are adventurous, experimental, politically involved, multiform, impossible to define, unpredictable, and dangerous with language. Belladonna is committed to publishing and building literary community among women and LGBTQIA+ authors who write off-center, write work that is political and critical, situational rather than plot-driven, intersubjective, performative, or witnessing rather than personally revelatory, work that reaches across the boundaries and binaries of literary genre and artistic fields, and that questions the gender binary. We have a studio in Brooklyn, New York, which is part of the Lenape-Hoking, the unceded ancestral homeland of the Lenape people. Our readers today are artists, journalists, professors, environmentalists, organizers, activists, and poets. Thinking about them and listening to the writers from across the world today, I realize that poetry, whatever else it is that which through death and oppression breaks through the cracks in our ground, through our hearts, up against repression, pushes through the rubble, explodes out of our third eye, and that as long as there is poetry, there is hope that Palestine and all peoples will be free. I'll read brief bios for all the readers in the order that they will read. Soretta Morgan is an environmental writer from the U.S. South. Levy Irwin is a writer, artist, and teacher based in Queens who writes about the spatiality of memory and materiality of forgetting. Lori Arbeiter is a durational artist who has been wearing and carrying messages of resistance every day, all day long, for over 20 years. Marin Arsanios is a Lebanese writer based in New York. She is the author of The Autobiography of a Language from Future Poem, 2022. And Shad Safi is a freelance journalist who extensively covered the current situation in Gaza for the first 5 months. She then traveled to the United States to continue her education. She loves poetry and has been writing poetry since 2020. And with that, I welcome Soretta to the stage.
Hi, everyone. I'm joining you from the ancestral lands of the Muskogee people. And before I read, I just wanted to uplift some work that's happening here that feels resonant to this gathering as well. And that is the Rifat Mobile Library in Atlanta, Georgia. It's a volunteer-run traveling liberation library that works to increase access to political education toward the liberation of Palestinian people. It's also a mutual aid project that responds to the needs of those who are most immediately, to Palestinians who are most immediately impacted by the genocide in Gaza. And if you visit their website, Rifat Library Atlanta, I think is what it is, you can find information about how to support them. There's also resources on how to start your own liberation library in the communities where you are. And thank you for letting me share that. I'm going to move now into reading. I'm not reading poems per se. It's more of a critical frame to sit alongside expectations for genre in the form of two excerpts from the essay Notes on Craft Writing in the Hour of Genocide by the Palestinian American writer Fargo Tabaki. It opens with a question. And actually, before I read that, I'll say Fargo's essay has been really important for me the past few years. It's the first thing that I read in that latter end of 2023 that I felt really gave me a sense of hope, hope in a way that it just felt like something where I could see steps forward. It begins with a question, which is, what does Palestine require of us as writers writing in English from within the imperial core in this moment of genocide? 1. Craft is a machine built to produce and reproduce ethical failures. It is a counter-revolutionary machine. I use craft here to describe the network of sanitizing influences exerted on writing in the English language, the influences of neoliberalism, of complicit institutions, and of the linguistic priorities of the state and of empire. Anti-colonial writers in the US and across the globe have long modeled alternative crafts which reject these priorities and continue to do so in this present moment. Yet craft still haunts our writing. These notes aim to clarify it, so we can rid ourselves of its influence. Above all, craft is the result of market forces. It is therefore the result of imperial forces, as the two are so inextricably bound up together as to be one and the same. The craft which is taught in Western institutions, taken up and reproduced by Western publishers, literary institutions, and awards bodies, is a set of regulatory ideas which curtail forms of speech that might enact real danger to the constellation of economic and social values which are, as I write this, facilitating genocide in Palestine and elsewhere across the globe. If, as Audre taught us, the master's tools cannot dismantle the master's house, then craft is the process by which our own real liberatory tools are dulled, confiscated, and replaced. And then later, if we are to consider writing a space in which to fight, we'd better know who we're fighting with, and why. Political thought and political education are the vital building blocks of that knowledge. Craft asks us to consider the language first and politics second, tells us that a political education is not central but peripheral to being a writer. We must reject this. As Amiri Baraka argued in a 2004 lecture on art and politics, you must raise the level of our understanding of the world so that we understand the causal connections in the world, why it acts the way it does, so that we don't believe everybody who smiles at us and gives us a broom is our friend, so that we know who our friends are and who our enemies are, and right now so that we can build that united front. What is the artist's job? To make war. The artist's job is unrelenting war on evil. Baraka tells us we are making war, and war requires strategy. Political thought is what provides the strategy for an artistic war. Political thought is the enemy of craft. Craft is a machine to elide and foreclose political thought. This must be our constant betrayal. I'll stop there. Thank you.
Hey, thank you so much, Soretta, for sharing those words, and thanks to Pamela Press and Rachel Levitsky. I'm gonna just go ahead and start reading. Also, not gonna be reading poetry, but I'm gonna read some excerpts from a piece I wrote after returning home from doing protective presence work in the West Bank this spring. Okay. It's been hard to come home. All I do is manically clean my apartment and scroll the news. The US is facing its inevitable collapse. ICE is building concentration camps in the wetlands. My government has bombed the state TV office in Iran. A friend from Bethlehem sends me a video of settlers attacking protesters in Al-Khair. Many familiar faces cross along my screen. I think, as I often do, about throwing my phone in the ocean. But I wouldn't want to poison the fish. Here in my apartment in Queens, 5,700 miles from Al-Khair, I wonder how the faces of the people who once stewarded this land looked, how their lips parted to speak, how they squinted their eyes in the summer sun, how their toes curled into the dirt, and what violence it took for it all to be taken from them and paved over. Does the Earth's rotation move us towards justice? Probably not. My rent is due, and I shell it out in stacks to my disgruntled NYPD detective landlord who complains that she hates her job and can't afford the upkeep on her family's home, while I metaphorically throw my wages into her trash can and light it all on fire. It is absurd to live in this world. Defending and nurturing the land in Palestine may be the only thing I've ever done that made any fucking sense. In the van on the way back from the farm in Nahalin, we got stuck at a checkpoint for 3 hours. A called her kids, and I was soothed by the idea of a mother who goes to Palestine to fight for justice and still tends to her children's trivial problems with love and compassion. I thought of phone calls with my mother at that age, crying at her about nothing. I thought of my beloved friends who wonder if it would be right to bring a child into this terrible world. I think of my pot warmer for Masaferyata, the woman who sold it to me's laughter and her child's mischievous smile as he peeked at us from the door. I have often thought that my mother's illness is the end of the world. I look at her and I see all the mothers who die, and I imagine the whole of creation imploding over and over again across time and space. Auden says, "We must love one another and die." The world turns ceaselessly, ending and beginning and ending and beginning. Who would let all of this destruction make them regret creation in the first place? How can I go on if I have forsaken the future? What role must I take if I am to tend to the cycles? A's call ended. The van still wasn't moving. I quietly committed to myself that I would bring life into this world no matter what might become of it. And then I turned my face into the crevice between the seat and the open window and cried into the darkness. Hours passed stuck in the van. These damn checkpoints, they are futile and pathetic. What else can you do? I fell asleep. I woke up when the car started moving. The van, a room on wheels, 4 walls and a roof in motion. In it, there were thresholds, gaps in the boundaries between our group of land defenders and an occupied highway. I woke up with my nose sticking out of the open window. I woke up to the tip of an AK-47 trained on my face mere feet from my eyes. I could reach out and touch it, but I didn't. My countenance didn't flinch. I stayed still as it passed me by. There was an Israeli girl behind the gun, maybe a teenager, crouched over a concrete block. I watched her surveilling Palestinians who were simply guilty of being seated on the driver's side. I watched her watching them. Her human eyes had transformed into the gaze of a rifle's scope. Looking at her, I remembered a moment a few days prior when we followed a concerning burning smell across the farm until we found ourselves looking out over the mountains at a stack of smoke rising from Gaza. In that same moment, there was laughter heard from the children's school in the settlement across the way. O asked me about moral injury. We postulated that their sequestered existence was child abuse, and prayed that just one of those children would wake up and make a different choice. 4 walls and a roof. I saw into the eyes at the other end of the rifle. What room was she inside of? I think that her world must be a sick container, just her and an iPhone screen. I bet she imagines she has the whole world at her fingertips. Freedom, she would call it. But in this room, there is no honey cake, no cardamom coffee, no mischievous children peeking around the corner. Junichiro Tanazaki's essay in Praise of Shadows describes a room as a palimpsest constituted by layered senses. A place where light flirts with darkness, where time leaves patina traces, where dust particles float through a singular ray of sunshine. Dead skin cells slough off of bodies in motion. In the room in Umm there was the faint sound of sheep bleating. Mud tracked through the doorframe. The implications of outside that situate the room in a world. The room as one instant in the cycles of creation. A room as defined by relationships, by sequences, by time. So what becomes of these places and these people? As though they were light particles, they are forced to disperse. I left Palestine like a sound. I have tried to write it, to capture it, to assimilate it into words I can understand. It's like trying to record an echo. I write into disappearance. This isn't a metaphor. I write how the hot tea soothed my throat, and then the water lines are cut. I write the house that sheltered me and then it is demolished. I write the friends that guided me and then they are arrested, beaten, or killed. So why write this at all? I write this because it is a story about going. So go there and see for yourself. You have to, because no one can bring it home to you, not really. Palestine lives forever in the land, in the soil, in the sapling. Her liberation will come from the ground. Thank you. That's it.
This is a poem inspired by the painting by Paul Klee, The Angel of History, and the writings about the painting by his friend Walter Benjamin, who wrote, quote, "His eyes are staring, his mouth is open, his wings are spread. This is how one pictures the angel of history. His face is turned toward the past. Where we perceive a chain of events, he sees one single catastrophe that keeps piling ruin upon ruin and hurls it in front of his feet. The angel would like to stay, awaken the dead, and make whole what has been smashed. But a storm is blowing from paradise. It has got caught in his wings with such violence that the angel can no longer close them. The storm irresistibly propels him into the future, to which his back is turned, while the pile of debris before him grows skyward." This is not a flyer, it's a poem. It's a poem written on the front lines. Where are the front lines? Where are the front lines where we must go without hesitation? Now. The future is now. The past is now. Genocide in Palestine is now. Conscience is calling. The front lines where against or for genocide, a Jewish civil war is on. Uncivil. Zionists beating back anti-Zionist Jews, saying we do not belong. Dehumanized, hated, threatened as the accused, as self-hating Jews, as anti-Semites. Can they not face us facing them? They cannot face us facing them, looking them in the eye, for an eye looking back. We are anti-Zionists. We are not self-hating, not exterminating. Knowing we will never find end to anxiety, to insecurity, to death by destroying Palestine, burning it down, the past, extinguishing all Palestinians, the present, through every scope's deadly crosshairs, each and every one the future. Cruelty is their mission. Love is amongst us. Against cruelty is the mission. We must rise up against cruelty, at cruelty's front lines, in overwhelming numbers, not to be overwhelmed. The wildfires of extermination are blazing, spreading until there will be no more. At the front lines, imagine 1,000, and another 1,000, and another 1,000 more. Against cruelty, at cruelty's front lines. We are Jewish. We stand for liberation. We stand with Palestine. At the front line of consciousness, at the front line of conscience, the front line of courage. The hour is late.
Hi, everyone. Such an honor to be here reading with all of you. Thank you to Razad and to all the organizers for putting together such an extraordinary reading. I've tuned in early in the morning, and it was amazing to hear a poet's reading from Raza. I'm going to be reading excerpts from an essay called Matter for Matter. And it's an essay I started writing shortly after the beginning of the genocide. Matter for Matter. I spent the summer pondering the obliterating dimensions of the psyche. The way a parent may see their child as an extension of themselves, or the way we tend to annihilate whoever threatens our own sense of containment. I was invested in understanding the violence of non-recognition via the assertion of borders, the logic of exclusion that reduces distinction to negation. I want everybody to be an adult, as in, the amount of harm you were exposed to as a child can never justify how much harm you can inflict on others, even if adults, like dragons, are an imaginary category, partially real, partially real. In fact, my attachment is rooted in an ancient fixation, a warm impasse, a permanent symptom. I feel both vitalized and corroded by its repetition, the repetition of the symptom. I say you because you accused me of being righteous, but you were wrong and I was right. I'm absolutely convinced of this fact, which is the truth, my friend. Amani has large, watery eyes, black like light after the 5th or 7th day. I stare at her, refusing to look away, each cigarette puffing at pathetic paradoxes, because what is love if not feelings extricated from the conditions of their feelings? How can the singer think of herself as good when she is so evil? The Islamic University was first erected under tents. Jamat al-Khayyam, school of ashes, ashes for rubble, rubble to rubble, a changing preposition, organizing order that, unlike a fact, can't be demolished. Nothing will be rebuilt, and or everything will grow. Today I'm full of life, of ideology, canvassing on the wet pavement, trying to convince any man to give me a signature. Someone internally sweaty interrupts me. He desires a reasonable conversation. Isn't it better for them to leave to avoid being killed? Wouldn't that be the humanitarian solution? I refuse to believe that he believes in the logic of his own argument. Like when he says that he isn't starving them when he is starving them, does he believe that he isn't starving them? Or that, quote, we aren't destroying a people, but protecting a people is a rhetorical inversion that can hold in the face of more than 100,000 martyrs? But he is right. It is a humanitarian solution, a set of lethargic beliefs materially engineered to serve the interests of the ruling class, the nation state, the endowment, the yearly budget, the machine now stalled by students thrusting their bodies into the syntax-heavy memorandum. You begin to stutter, add a disclaimer. The writer refers matter to the symbol. The reader refers the symbol back to the matter. In other words, violence is now violent. A starving baby is now a starving baby. Is that a poet's dream? To restore the dullness of perceptive habits to the shattering magnitude of the real? To render experience in blood? I'm shocked. As shocked as I was yesterday when I said, I'm shocked, I can't believe this is happening. My stupor outdoing itself with each renewed atrocity, forecasting in its recurrence a future that, although predictable, remains impossible to imagine. Like, what can be more fucked up than an individualized campaign of mass extermination, the enemy's repeated decision to deprive an entire nation, each single person, of sustenance, their personal investment in severing every Palestinian body from its relationship to life and death? If by life we mean the capacity to grow, feel envious, fall asleep, and by death, determination of that capacity, the realms now blurred by the enemy's desire to wreck the rituals that keep them apart. Like, how do you go on living as the only surviving member of a once family of many, or bury loved ones incinerated beyond recognition, like, quote, charred hot dogs, the foreign doctor says on a radio show meant to shake Western listeners out of apathy or worse, complicated feelings? There are so many horrifying stories I could tell you. Like the one time I personally had to amputate a child, no drugs to mitigate the pain, only white burning vinegar to keep wounds from infection, before she died of agony, not the wound itself, while clutching the hand of a gray-faced nurse who, before leaving the hospital, had to borrow civilian clothes to avoid being targeted for assisting a 3-year-old child, shot in the head twice, the first time intentionally, the second time deliberately. The doctor says his use of blasphemous similes not nearly as degrading as the life and death Palestinians are still enduring. Every day I wake up alive with images of war. I simultaneously understand and don't understand. The purpose of this peace being to reignite some kind of commitment to incomprehension, an invitation to betray the social order that normalizes stepping over a woman on 2nd Avenue, head flat against stained cement, mouth drooling on a breast full of holes. Shock is a wavering threshold, exposing the mechanisms that enable the intolerable to become tolerable by obfuscating through a stream of shocking, unbearably shocking images, empire's own ordinary brutality. Thank you.
Am I live? I think it's Shad is going now.
Oh, yep. Sorry about that.
Um,
Hey, Shad. Shad, you're muted at the moment.
Hi everyone, this is Shahid Safi, and I'm a genocide survivor. It has become part of my identity. I survived on the 3rd of March, 2024, and for me, it was mentioned before that I started writing poetry in 2020 in English, but earlier to that, I was writing in Arabic, and for me, it was one of the coping mechanisms that I used to have in the Gaza Strip because I spent 23 years of my life in Gaza. And, just like other Palestinians, hope for me is the only option within all of the things that are happening. So, one of the things that does give me like strong hope is solidarity. So, I wrote this poem called Hope, and I was trying to mimic Emily Dickinson's way of writing. Hope. Hope is a flame that flickers in the heart amidst the airstrikes. When babies cry, then crying die. People who lie beneath their homes can no longer sing lullabies. Yet, hope calms our hearts, nurtures our dreams of life, heals our wounds, and promises a victory. When hope withers, agony comes, and anger, at the clueless, the brainwashed, who smile within the bubble that imperialism demands. For we are people of love, of dignity, and of life, so hope will shine, be brightest in our wildest storms. Pain covers the land like shadows, but light in our torn hearts rises. Gaza will grow beyond the grief. Gaza will survive. I have hoped through the harshest days across our shattered shore, yet never in our deepest pain has hope asked for more. Thank you.